Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. Then we can be assured that other nations will not treat America with respect, the respect that we deserve.
What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American Politics, back in with a new video, and today we're doing a new presidential prediction. I know, kind of late for that, isn't it? Well, I decided, you know what, after doing a bit of research, a bit of, what if, thinking, whatever, I decided to do a what if scenario. What if Glenn Youngkin is a Republican nominee in 2024? I know that sounds crazy, but this is really a matchup between Glenn Youngkin versus Joe Biden for the presidential election. I know. Trump is going to probably be the nominee. However, again, I want to do a different scenario each month until 2023, 2024, so it's a bit fresh for people, and give my perspective on how some states would vote. And Glenn Youngkin, in my opinion, is an electoral beast. I know that sounds crazy, but we saw what he did in Virginia, which again, I think New Jersey had a bigger swing, but still, how Virginia's voted in the past, the fact he won it, I mean, he was a great candidate, and personally, I think it would translate very well nationwide. And there is a rumor going around that if Trump decides not to run, Youngkin is potentially entering 2024. Again, Trump's running, but this is going to be a what-if scenario, and yeah. So before I forget, of course, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the little bell, and yes. Now, this is an interesting scenario, as Youngkin, I thought, okay, was going to be one of those candidates that did very good in the suburbs, which he did do okay in the suburbs, but struggle in the rules. He somehow was able to get practically Trump margins in the rules, which, by the way, you can thank Trump for that. People that say Trump had no effect on that, Trump had a big effect on turnout in the rural part of Virginia. If you want to thank Youngkin for something, it was definitely gaining momentum in the Virginia Beach area and Nova. He is a good candidate who he can appeal to both factions, and quite frankly, he has been a very good governor. I mean, he's been signing some very based bills. I mean, for a candidate in a safe Democrat state, he's been, more conservative than the governor in Utah. It's just mind-boggling. So he has an interesting appeal where he can appeal both to the Trumpian type voter, like working class, rural voter, and more of those suburban parents, which there is a myth going around they've been trending heavy Democrat. They've been trending Democrat, but not the rate that some people make it sound to be. So, yeah, this is going to be the prediction. And let's, of course, start with the obvious states. I don't gotta say much about these states. Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. Do I gotta say anything about these states? South Carolina. I think Maine's second. Well, yeah, Maine's second at this point with how it's trending. I don't think Youngkin does that much worse than Trump in a lot of these places. But again, these are the for sure, no matter what you do, these will be the safe Republican seats. There will be a couple other ones. As for Joe, I think California, obviously, Hawaii, Illinois, the issue is Chicagoland. No matter what you do, those voters are voting for Joe. It's just mind-boggling how stupid some of them are. Of course, Maryland, Delaware, New York, Rhode Island, or Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont. And I'm going to leave Maine's first up for second. Well, Maine's first probably be safe. So this is a for sure, no matter what you do, safe Democrat seats. Of course, also DC. Now, I would add a couple more safe Republican seats. I think Texas in this scenario. I think Youngkin, would do pretty good in the, Hispanic parts, southern Texas, the Rio Grande Valley area. I don't think as good as Trump 2024 would, but still better than most Republicans. Plus, I think his suburban margins in Harris County, the Dallas area, will be closer to Nova. Like, hey, he swings like 5-6 points Republican. I also do think Iowa and Ohio, I think if you combine, Bush's margins in the Columbus and Cincinnati area, well, actual Cincinnati and actual Columbus with Trump's rural margins, yeah, I think that's pretty easy. And plus, that's kind of easy to do. I mean, you gotta shift to, I think, like 5 points Republican in Columbus area. It's not that hard to do. It's just, Delaware County, just why do you exist? But for Iowa, I think that's just, at this point, Iowa's gone. It's kind of like Ohio, so yeah, safe Republican. And that's it. For Joe, I do think Washington would be safe Democrat. The only reason I had it, not safe Democrat as well, it's Washington. They have some weird elections. Go look up the Seattle Attorney General race. It's very cursed. I also do think that that's probably the only safe Democrat state that Biden gained from this in this scenario. So let's get rid of all the obvious other states. Florida, I think, is likely. I mean, pretty much just, he wins it by 5-6 points easily. Trump wins it by 7-8 points. DeSantis probably 8-9 points. Either way, it's likely Republican no matter what you do. And very similar thing in North Carolina. I think he does great in the Research Triangle. Doesn't suffer that bad of a drop-off in the rural parts. So I think that's not crazy to say in that scenario. And plus, with the current national environment, the inflation crisis, the economic crisis, that's not crazy to think, he wins these states by quite a bit considering the, North Carolina and Florida. I also do think Wisconsin will be likely. Look, I think Wisconsin is going likely either way in 2024. It's going to have a very similar swing as Ohio did in 2016 to 2012 to 2016, like 8-point swing towards the right. May sound crazy, but when you look at some of the precinct data, yeah, Democrats are going to clobber in here. It's a matter of who runs. Barring a Nikki Haley type, Republicans are going to win the state pretty easily. So yeah, as of now, I think these are the likely Republican seats. As for Democrats, I think these are quite obvious. Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, they're all going to be likely. And I think Minnesota's one of the only states I think that Youngkin actually suffers. This is one of those states that, yeah, he does better in the Minneapolis area. But at the same time, it's like, I think the rural turnout would be a bit too low. And it'd be like, a 2-point swing to the right. It's just Minnesota. Just, why do you exist? Like, why? I also do think that New Jersey and Connecticut would be within 10 points. Not saying Youngkin would win it. I just think we saw what happened in New Jersey. Jack Ciattarelli almost won New Jersey. And on some issues, he's fairly similar to Youngkin. And kind of the same appeal as Youngkin, pro-parent, pro-school choice, pro-family, all that stuff. So it's very similar. Plus Connecticut, it's one of those weird states that a Youngkin type could easily do pretty good in the state of Connecticut. So yeah, those are the likely states. And dear God, this map is looking cursed. Again, I'm not saying, this is what's going to happen. Again, Youngkin is probably not going to run. This is just certain things happen that makes this scenario possible. Now we got the lean Republican seats. I think Arizona, Georgia, both go lean. I think just the suburban margins alone. I mean, either way, I think Arizona goes Republicans by 3-4 points. I think Youngkin probably wins it by 4 points. As for Georgia, I think with the recent voter roll purge and the fact that, Democrats are a bit in a panic in the state where it's like, oh crap, we lost our, mysterious voting machine in Atlanta. It's like, yeah, that's not going to go well for them. Plus, I do think with Youngkin, again, suburban areas are going to be the biggest shift towards the right nationwide. That's been the issue with Georgia. The freaking suburbs. So I do think Youngkin would win by 3-4 points in the state of Georgia. And I do think in Pennsylvania, I think he wins it. I think he wins it by 1.5 points. Again, I don't think he wins the Philly suburbs. I think he gets close enough in the Philly suburbs, does good enough in the rest of the state, and that's how you get the 1.5 point victory in Pennsylvania. As for Democrats, I do think that they probably get made at large by, 2-3 points. And that's kind of it. So really, there's 4 states that I would say are the true, true toss-ups to this election. God, this is cursed. It's Nevada, Michigan, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Nebraska's second. So let's go for it, each one. Nevada. This is a weird state. Now, look, Youngkin, I think, does a bit better than 2020 Trump with Hispanics, but not as good as 2024 Trump with Hispanics. That's why I don't have this lean. but I think he does just good enough in the Reno area where that's not going to matter. He's not going to win it. I think he, wins Nevada by quarter of a point. It's going to be a very close race. But I do think Youngkin, with his unique appeal, he's going to get just enough rural turnout, at the same time do just good enough in the more suburban parts of the state of Nevada. Now, Nebraska's second. This is, again, I think that this Youngkin, I think, barely pulls it off. Just barely, like the closest result in the nation, probably like a 1/10 of a point. It's going to be basically dead even. It's a very close district, but I do think Youngkin barely pulls it off. Then you get Michigan, which this is interesting. And again, it's very similar to Pennsylvania. Again, I think he gets just enough rural turnout. At the same time, do I think he can do just good enough in the Detroit area? No. At the same time, you got the Grand Rapids area, which I do think he would probably do Romney levels in the Grand Rapids area. I mean, he can appeal to those voters fairly easily. So with that in mind, it's very close, but again, I think you just barely, just by the skin of his teeth, he wins Michigan by a very, very, very close margin. Now we get Virginia. Oh boy. Oh god. I'm just gonna skip Virginia. Not worth it. As for New Hampshire, I think Youngkin wins it. I think just the war stuff alone could kill Biden. But it's a very independent state, which Youngkin, again, that's going to be his bread and butter. A lot of these independent-minded voters that, may have voted for Joe in 2020, whether that was, through certain measures, either way, did vote for Joe. I do think they would be able to be more inclined to vote for Youngkin or just not show up at all. So this is my prediction. Again, I'm avoiding Virginia. I'm just going to skip Virginia. So let's just say Virginia doesn't exist. Youngkin would have 317, Joe Biden would have 208. And again, this is with the current national environment. This is with how Youngkin's been governing. And yeah, so I do think, again, this doesn't mean, this is going to happen. Again, I don't think Youngkin runs. This is a very unique situation, and based on what we saw in Virginia. Again, some things like Oregon being safe Democrat probably happened. Stuff like lean Minnesota, sure. But based on what we saw in Virginia, kind of what I would expect for a nationwide race to happen. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the little bell, and yes. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Godspeed to all of you.